a forbidden love that no one lived to tell. They said she lit the fire. They said he dragged her to hell. But the truth is, no one ever asked why. Because in Mason Creek, Arkansas, the dead don't speak, and the living, they just pray it doesn't happen again. Eden Morales was the kind of girl people looked at like glass. Pretty, quiet, polished, but breakable. Daughter of Pastor Samuel Morales, she was homeschooled, God-fearing, and watched like a hawk. Her life was scripted. Marry a white, God-approved boy from the church, smile politely at potlucks, keep her legs crossed, and her head down. But Eden kept secrets in her Bible, wrote poems on pages between Corinthians and Psalms. And some nights, she dreamt of burning everything down. Isaiah Keller had just turned 18 when he moved into town. Half black, half white, raised in the foster system after his mother overdosed in a halfway house in Chicago. He was angry. Not loud, not violent, just haunted. He worked at Boyd's Auto and Tire, kept his hood up, and slept in a room that still smelled like his dead aunt's perfume. He didn't believe in anything. Not love, not God, not safety. But then he saw Eden at the market, tracing her finger over the bruised apples. She looked at him like he wasn't a warning sign. They began meeting at the abandoned grain mill. It smelled like dust and dead things, but to them, it felt free. Their love grew in silence. No promises, no plans. Just flesh and hunger and desperation. Two souls who weren't supposed to meet, colliding like storms. But when a white girl with purity to protect gives herself to a boy the town doesn't trust, the town doesn't forgive. It started with whispers in church. Then Eden missed a Sunday. Then her father found Isaiah's name carved into her diary. That same night, someone broke into the auto shop and left a noose on Isaiah's locker. The pastor called it spiritual warfare. The church called it discipline. Eden was locked in her room. Her mother wept while reading the Bible louder than the thunder outside. Isaiah left a note in her mailbox. If we can't leave, we'll end it together. Meet me at the mill. One last time. She showed up barefoot, in a white nightgown soaked with rain. Her eyes looked empty, like the body was there, but Eden had already left. Isaiah had brought a can of gasoline, not to scare her, to cleanse it all. They held each other for a long time in the shadows. She asked him if he believed in hell. He said, "I think we're already in it." Then, quietly, she whispered, "Let's burn it down, with us inside." The old mill burned for 9 hours. The fire department said it was arson. The sheriff said it was suicide. The church said it was judgment. 2 bodies were found in the ashes, clinging to each other like they were still trying to hold on. The next Sunday, Pastor Morales gave a sermon on the consequences of sin. No one spoke Eden's name. No one claimed Isaiah's body. The mill is gone now, replaced by a Dollar General and a memory no one wants. In the summer of 1961, the southern town of Oxford, Mississippi, sweltered under the weight of its own past. The air hung heavy with humidity and secrets. The town square was lined with brick buildings that hadn't changed since the Great Depression. Inside the segregated diner on Main Street, a young black woman named Evelyn Carter, 19, wiped down the counter after the lunch rush. She was saving money for nursing school, keeping her head down in a town where the civil rights movement was a threat to the way things had always been. Across the square, the son of a prominent white judge, Thomas Whitmore, 21, was home for the summer from Yale, where he studied political science. Unlike his father, who had helped block integration in local schools, Thomas had been quietly attending rallies in New Haven, questioning everything he'd been raised to believe. Their worlds collided when Thomas stepped into the diner on a dare from a college friend visiting from Chicago. He ordered a sweet tea from Evelyn. Their eyes met, just long enough for something unspoken to pass between them. He came back the next day, and the next. Soon, he wasn't ordering anything at all, just sitting at the counter, asking her questions. She was cautious, sharp, and aware of every glance they drew from customers. But she admired his curiosity. He didn't flinch when she talked about voter suppression or her brother being arrested for trying to register people. He listened. And then one night, he waited outside the diner after her shift, holding a book of Langston Hughes poetry. "I thought you might like this," he said. They began meeting in secret, first in the woods behind her grandmother's church, then inside an abandoned barn outside town. They talked for hours about their dreams. Hers to become a nurse and travel, his to fight for justice in the courts. They read poetry. They kissed. When Thomas returned to Yale in the fall, they began writing letters, dozens of them. But they couldn't use their real names. He signed his as T and she as E. They created a code to talk about their love. She was the cotton sky. He was the river beneath. But by winter, Evelyn's younger brother, Marcus, found one of the letters and confronted her. He was furious, not just because she was risking everything, but because he'd seen what white men did to black women who got too close. Emmett Till's name still echoed like a prayer and a warning. Evelyn tried to end it. She didn't write for weeks. Thomas came back in December, banging on the back door of her grandmother's house in the pouring rain. "I don't care," he said. "We'll leave. I have money. We'll go north." But Evelyn knew better. Mississippi had long arms. Her mother once said, "You can't outrun a noose if it already knows your name." Still, the heart is a reckless thing. In the new year, she agreed to one last meeting, a final night together before she'd leave for Memphis to begin her nursing classes. It was February 1962. They met at the barn, as they always had. He brought her a necklace with a small gold heart. She gave him a journal filled with her poems. They lay in each other's arms, dreaming of an impossible life, but someone had followed them. A truck pulled up just after midnight. Flashlights, voices, men, 3 of them. Evelyn recognized the town sheriff's voice. Thomas tried to shield her. He shouted, "She's with me. She's not doing anything wrong." But that didn't matter. Not to them. Thomas was beaten, left bleeding in the dirt. Evelyn was taken. They said she was being arrested for immoral conduct, but no charges were ever filed. She was released the next day with a warning and a broken rib. Her mother packed their bags that night. Thomas was hospitalized for a concussion and broken jaw. His father, furious and embarrassed, threatened to disown him. "You've humiliated this family," he spat. "You're lucky they didn't hang you both." Thomas dropped out of Yale. He never spoke publicly of what happened, but he kept the journal of poems. Evelyn, in Memphis, changed her name to Elena Carter. She finished nursing school, worked at a small black-owned clinic, and tried to rebuild her life. She never told anyone about Thomas, not even the man she married years later. For decades, their lives ran parallel, never touching. He became a civil rights lawyer in D.C., quietly fighting for desegregation. She raised 2 daughters, marched with Dr. King in '68, and treated gunshot wounds during the Memphis sanitation strike. They never spoke again. In 2005, Evelyn's husband died. Her daughters, grown and curious, convinced her to take a genealogy DNA test. Weeks later, she received a letter from a law firm in Washington. Someone named Thomas Whitmore had passed away. Among his final wishes was that a small package be delivered to an E. Carter of Mississippi. Inside was the Langston Hughes book. a gold necklace, and a copy of the journal. On the last page, written in his shaky handwriting, were the words, "I never stopped being your river. You were the sky I never reached, but I flowed beneath you every day, watching, waiting, loving, tea." Evelyn sat for hours, clutching the book to her chest. She didn't cry, not at first, just sat in silence, remembering a time when loving someone could have killed you. The next morning, she took a bus to D.C. She stood quietly in front of his grave in a small, tree-shaded cemetery. And for the first time in 43 years, she whispered, "I loved you too." Some stories don't get a second chance. Some loves live in silence, in journals, in memories locked in boxes. But even in tragedy, there is power in remembrance, in knowing that for a moment, beneath a cotton sky, love defied everything. In the humid plains of northern India, nestled between rice fields and slow rivers, there lived two villages, divided not just by a river, but by faith, caste, and 70 years of inherited silence. On the eastern side, in a conservative Muslim family, lived Alia, a gifted young calligrapher, known for her Quranic verses and quiet grace. On the western bank, in a politically active Sikh household, lived Harmeet, a schoolteacher who believed in poetry more than politics. They met, ironically, at a government-organized flood relief camp. Alia volunteering with her father, and Harmeet helping children find their families. It began with stolen glances across a supply table, then a shared laugh, then a shared secret. Soon they began meeting at dawn, on the riverbank where no one dared cross. Every week, Harmeet would leave a book wrapped in cloth for her. Poetry, history, and eventually a notebook filled with his own thoughts. She, in return, left calligraphy, verses from Rumi and Ghalib, painted onto stones and floated gently across the water. They never spoke of a future, not in the beginning. But love, once planted, spreads. They knew what they were doing could get them both killed. Mixed faith relationships had ended badly before, a girl stoned in her courtyard 2 years ago, a boy dragged from a train and never found. Still, they continued, for nearly 8 months, until one morning, Alia didn't appear. Harmeet waited under the neem tree for hours, the river mocking him with silence. That night, his door was broken down. Men from Alia's village, backed by her family, stormed his home, beat him within inches of death, and burned his notebook. Alia was sent away, some say to relatives in Dubai, others say she was forced into marriage. Her younger sister later whispered that Alia was pregnant, and the family took care of it. Harmeet survived, but never taught again. He moved to a city 3 hours away, became a night shift librarian, and never spoke about what happened. But he kept a single stone on his desk, smooth, flat, painted with an inked line of Urdu poetry. We met at the border of courage and shame, and built love where none was allowed. Years later, a journalist writing about partition-era romances stumbled onto Harmeet's story. He declined to be recorded, but handed over the stone. Alia was never found again. No obituary, no death certificate, no confirmed sighting. Only the river remains, quiet, eternal, and flowing between two places that still pretend she and Harmeet never happened.